subscribers. And this one, we got to shout Mamma Mia. And this one, oh no. Loyal subscribers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for inviting me in your home and many of your devices. Thank you for the new subscribers. Welcome, welcome. For the rest, the doors are always open. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Now, people, we always heard that a lot of folks go and adopt black children from Kenya. We always know that a lot of black children out here are in children aids. We all know there's lots of black children, lots of children living in motels under the care of children aids. We know back in the past, black children will be scraped up from one end to the next and put in homes and group homes around other people that don't look like them. So we're not shouting racism at this point. Jonah was adopted from Kenya. Jonah was sent to school in Jamaica, some kind of program. After the program halted in the COVID pandemic, Jonah was abandoned by the so-called governor that was running for power. The former governor that was running for power. Now, you see my screen? Who's the governor I'm talking about? Who is the governor? So we want to talk about this governor right there. You see this governor right there? See the little black child there? That was Jonah when he was a little bit, maybe about 8, almost 5, when he was adopted from Kenya. That's how the family looked when he was there, looking all nice with the rest of the adoptee. There goes the family when they're running for president, when he's running for Governor Bevin. This is how the family look. That's Jonah right there looking all happy. But as soon as Jonah reached of age, he was abandoned by his parents, Mr. Bevin and the wife. We have to say allegedly, because there's two sides to the story. Now I know you guys get some strange story over here, but we're trying not to run with mix up all the time. So can we get into the story? So I just want this to stick up in here. Here is Jonah. Jonah was adopted, like I said, from Kenya at the age of 5. Jonah ended up in Jamaica abandoned by his governor, by his lovely family that took him from Kenya. So let's get into the story quick and fast.
His dad was once the Republican governor of Kentucky, but Matt Bevin's adopted son, Jonah, now has an emergency protective order against the former governor.
He's 18 and has a lot to say, including claims of abuse, neglect, and abandonment. Our Lee Searcy talked to him, and we want to warn you, some of the details may be disturbing. When Matt Bevin ran for public office, his large family was...
And I want to show you his large family right there, and you think say everything irie. But the man is crying out, you abandoned me and left me in Jamaica with the rest of the black folks. Let's continue. Oh, sir.
Always right there with him. That's Jonah, one of 4 children from Ethiopia the Bevins adopted.
Right
he was
there.
5. He says they looked like one happy family, at least in the public eye.
But when I got older, I started understanding things like a whole nother level, and I started seeing things that just didn't fit, and I started calling things out.
How was life different when the cameras were not on?
Oh, it was very different. I mean, you can see it now. I mean, they divorced already. I mean, they're filing for divorce and all that. So you can see the family wasn't stable, and I was just the one that was being hidden, because they didn't want me to speak up for myself. Yeah, I was the one that really had to be hidden, and there was also good enough reason for them to send me off to another program or 2 programs, because if I said something, then it would put his public image at risk.
At 13, he says the Bevins sent him to his first reform school.
At 13, they sent him all the way to Jamaica. Send him right away. Go, you Negro, get out of here. Allegedly. Anyways, let's continue.
Called the Masters Ranch, where children's rights attorney Don Post says kids slept in coffin beds. It was the first of several programs Jonah says the Bevins sent him to.
He was often transported in the middle of the night by professional transporters. And so there was no face-to-face goodbyes.
Well, yeah, because it's set up in a way where they don't have to do the dirty work, and the dirty work is on someone else. So it's easier for them to do that.
Jonah says the Bevins ultimately abandoned him at an abusive facility in Jamaica last year, where he says he and other children were brutally beaten. The school was shut down and he ended up back in the States homeless. But even then, he says the Bevins never tried to help him. Since sharing his story.
Could you imagine that, people? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that?
Was always right there with him. That's Jonah, one of 4 children from Ethiopia the Bevins adopted. He was 5. He says they looked like one happy family, at least in the public eye.
But when I got older, I started understanding things like a whole.
Okay.
Also, good enough reason for them to send me off to another program or 2 programs, because if I said something, then it would put his public image at risk.
At 13, he says the Bevins.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because it's set up in a way where they don't have to do the dirty work, and the dirty work is on someone else. So it's easier for them to do that.
Jonah says the Bevins ultimately abandoned him at an abusive facility in Jamaica last year, where he says he and other children were brutally beaten. The school was shut down and he ended up back in the States homeless. But even then, he says the Bevins never tried to help him. Since sharing his story, a GoFundMe.
Could you imagine? So now he had to go to a GoFundMe to help, because the governor and the wife turned his back on him. The governor don't care no more. Once all of that money run out, once you're 18, I can't collect anything about you. Can't collect any free money for being adoptee. Can't get anything free. You're an adult. Go on your own. Throw you to the curb. Go pick up your pieces. Go pick up your blackness. Know yourself. Out in the world. By yourself at 18. Imagine you've been living in a governor house. After that, they shipped you to Jamaica in a third world country. Allegedly, they beat him to scorn. Then after that, nobody came to get him. Him and another adoptee child was there by themselves after everybody else's parents came and got them. Let's continue.
Has been set up to help Jonah start over. He appreciates that, but says he now wants to use his experience and name recognition to help other children in similar circumstances.
Listen.
But you do see a lot of adoptees that the parents don't want anymore.
They don't.
They don't want the responsibility, so they throw them away in programs and forget about them.
And that is really the message that I hope people hear, is that this is not a one-off. I am representing a lot of kids.
That's his lawyer.
And they're in pretty desperate circumstances, and I'm trying to, help them and do legal work for them as well all across the country.
Jonah's message to other children who feel abandoned.
Don't give up. You might not see the hope in the moment, but there's hope at the end of the tunnel.
Lee Searcy, LEX 18 News.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Let's continue.
His dad was once the Republican governor of Kentucky, but Matt Bevin's adopted son, Jonah, now has an emergency protective order against the former governor.
He's 18 and has a lot to say.
Look how handsome Jonah was when he was a young boy. Look how young he was when he's adopted from Kenya. And after that, throw him to the curb, leaving him in Jamaica. Don't care for him at all. And then he has to find his way back to America. After the governor neglected him, abandoned him, and all of that. So do you know where your children are being adopted to? Oh, I forgot. Once they end up in an orphan, nobody knows where they go. We don't know. Before we get to this case, people, I'm going to interject a little bit more. There was a case where 2 white lesbo LGBTQ adopted about 4 or 5 black children. And Remember that protest where you see that black child was hugging the police officer? I don't know if you guys heard about the case, but the lady ended up putting the van with the bunch of children over the cliff. I don't know if you guys heard about that story. Go look up that story. So lots of black children will be adopted out, end up being raped, end up being abused, end up in gangs, end up in at the other end of the law, and at the end of the day, nothing come out of it because, like I said, they're crown award, they're adopted, and you have nothing to talk about as the mother, as the father, because once the court take away your children, give guardianship to somebody else, you have no talk. Remember, I tell you guys this. So Jonah was adopted from Ethiopia and came here now. Governor abandoned him. Let's continue.
Including claims of abuse, neglect, and abandonment. Arlise, here's
an emergency protective order against the former governor.
He's 18 and has a lot to say, including claims of abuse, neglect, and abandonment. Arlise Searcy talked to him, and we want to warn you, some of the details may be disturbing.
Yep.
When Matt Bevin ran for public office, his large family was always right there with him. That's Jonah, one of 4 children from Ethiopia the Bevins adopted. He was 5. He says they looked like one happy family, at least in the public eye.
But when I got older, I started understanding things like a whole nother level, and I started seeing things that just didn't fit, and I started calling things out.
How was life different when the cameras were not on?
Oh, it's very different. I mean, you can see it now. I mean, they divorced already. I mean, they're filing for divorce and all that. So you can see the family wasn't stable. And I was just the one that was being hit.
So look at this man come out in the public. Oh, I'm Matt Bevin. Oh, I'm running for governor. Oh, here are some of the black kids I felt sorry for and adopted. Oh, but when everybody turned their back, politics is done. When I already got the spot, let me abandon the black child in Jamaica. Say who, say what, say who now? Oh my. Let's continue from another angle.
You know, because they didn't want me to speak up for myself. I was the one that really had to be hidden, and they was also good enough reason for them to send me off to another program or 2 programs, because if I said something, then it would put his public image at risk.
At 13, he says the Bevins sent him to his first reform school called the Masters Ranch, where children's rights attorney Don Post says kids slept in coffin beds. It was the first of several programs Jonah says the Bevins sent him to.
He was often transported in the middle of the night by professional transporters. And so there was no face-to-face goodbyes.
Well, yeah, because it's set up in a way where they don't have to do the dirty work, and the dirty work is on someone else. So it's easier for them to do that.
Jonah says the Bevins ultimately abandoned him at an abusive facility in Jamaica last year, where he says he and other children were brutally beaten. The school was shut down, and he ended up back in the States homeless. But even then, he says the Bevins never tried to help him. Since sharing his story, a GoFundMe has been set up to help Jonah start over. He appreciates that, but says he now wants to use his experience and name recognition to help other children in similar circumstances.
But you do see a lot of adoptees that the parents...
Right? So all of those things in one. Imagine that you're adopted by this so-called family. Nice family from your 5. And you think that this family is going to grow you up into a young man, maybe get one of those nice office job, maybe pull your bootstring up, get some career, go and get some education, go get a trade. And he said, nah, we're done with you. 18, get out of here. We're going to leave you in Jamaica. Find your way back to America. Could you imagine? Could you imagine that a child grow up in a home, in a governor's home, where maybe have bodyguard and all kind of things, and end up in Jamaica allegedly being abused, abandoned by the so-called governor out here showing that the family is great. Oh, look at we, I understand the black issue, the black problem. We were one big great family, mixed family, bonded family. And behind the black folks back, behind the world back, Jonah is left in Jamaica and had to find his way back to America because he was abandoned by the governor, allegedly. Could you imagine? So at the end of the day, there's also another case where two white folks adopted black children and kept them in the shed and abused them and used them like slave. Not too long, I believe I spoke about that case. Yes? Adopted the black children. These two efforts right there, adopted the black children and left them in the shed. Right? Children found locked in the shed. Let's revisit the story for a second. And I'm telling you that these people are adopting these children that don't look like them because they could get a bag of money and turn their back and ill-treat them when they're ready. So let's get to another story that happened 8 months ago that you guys are not paying attention to. Okay, give me a second.
Now to a shocking case out of West Virginia where a couple is facing charges after some of their adopted children were found locked in a shed living in deplorable conditions. Jean Whitefeather and Donald Lance are accused of adopting 5 kids from a shelter, targeting them for forced labor specifically because of their race. The sheriff's office says they found some of the children in October locked inside a barn during a welfare check at the couple's home. The 2 children told authorities they had been inside the small room for about 12 hours when they were found. Neighbors reported that the children were also forced to perform farm labor and were not allowed inside the home. Chief Legal Analyst Kalev Rhodes joins us now. Kalev, this is just a horrible case of neglect. Just wretched what these children went through. But let's talk about the charges that this couple faces.
I mean, you're talking about kidnapping. You're talking about, well, let's go back. Disgusting. I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind. When I first looked at this story, it was like, am I really reading this? Is this a parody? Like, what is actually happening?
Yeah.
But yeah, the trafficking of human trafficking is the number one thing. Child abuse, neglect. It runs the gamut of anything, the worst of the worst that you can think about. This didn't just start in West Virginia. It actually started in Washington. They were under investigation in Washington and moved to West Virginia. Sold both of those properties. The attempt to try to pay their bond. They had a $400,000 combined bond. The judge was like, nope, too much. We'll figure something out. We'll make it $500,000 for each of you all. And they kept that money. They said, because this property was used in the commission of this crime, we believe now it's turned into contraband. And so you can't even get your money back. We'll hold that money until this case is resolved. And if this money goes anywhere, it should go to those children. I mean, this is just absolutely disgusting for sure.
So, I mean, do they face any charges of slavery? Because we mentioned that they supposedly adopted these kids for that purpose.
That would be the neglect.
Do you hear? So they adopted the black children to keep them like a slave, have them in the yard doing work, hardly no food, sleeping in the shed, sleeping on the concrete, all of these kind of things. So if you haven't heard about these stories, Jonah's story is not the first and it won't be the last, guys. I'm trying to find the other story where two ladies adopted black children, yes, and the van went over the cliff. Let me see if I could find that story. If not, I would just kiss my teeth literally and pass. Kiss my teeth right here. I ain't lying to you guys. Those are the adopted kids. Look at them. See the next story here? Those are the adopted kids, yes? Drove off the cliff with the children. Let's get into the story. And this was like about 4, 5, 6 years ago. Let's get into the story, please, and thanks.
A family that plunged to its death over a cliff in Northern California may have been much more than meets the eye. You're watching What's Trending. I'm Martine Bierman. Be sure to subscribe.
Listen.
At the bottom of a 100-foot cliff.
See there? That's where their car end up. Just a minute. Let me show you guys. That's where their car end up, over the cliff. The children and the black children end up over there. Huh? Let's continue. Those were the 2 adoptee mother. Let's continue.
Adopted children were discovered Monday morning in a wrecked car at the bottom of a 100-foot cliff off of the Pacific Coast Highway. 3 of their children are still missing, and investigators aren't sure if they were in the car or still out there somewhere. One of those missing children is Devontae Hart, who at the...
Remember when the protest was going on? He's the one who came out and hugged the police officer. You guys remember that child? He was adopted by 2 white folks, and the van ended up over the cliff with most of the children in there, and this little boy is still missing. Is he dead? Where is he, folks? So these are the things that I'm talking about. So enough time you see all these people adopt black children, you see them on the net making all kind of money, you see them in the community doing all kind of things, you'll be like, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Kiss my teeth literally and pass. Next.
12 went viral for this 2014 photo of him embracing a police officer at a Portland, Oregon protest of the decision not to charge the police officer who fatally shot Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri.
Remember that?
In 2017, the family moved from Oregon to Woodland, Washington. And the Hart family's next-door neighbors in Washington have shed some light on why they might have left in the first place.
Dana and Bruce DeKalb live next door to the Harts and say a couple of weeks ago, Devontae started sneaking over and asking for food.
See?
He told them his moms didn't feed the kids.
So the 2 white lady adopted these children, getting a bag of money. No food for the black children. They had to go next door to ask for food. See where I'm going with this? So don't bother to come and say, hey, you're playing race card. I am not. They're playing the race card. Weren't they not feeding the black kids? Let's continue.
It was punishment. Dana said one of the girls seen in these happy family photos on Facebook had said something similar before, but she says the mothers provided an explanation.
Apparently, Devontae had been going over to Dana DeKalb's house multiple times a day asking for food. Despite hearing an explanation from the parents, eventually DeKalb decided that she had to contact Child Protective Services.
I was trying to help them and protect them. And this is the result.
CPS tried visiting the home. There was no answer, and the next day the family left. Their former next-door neighbor in Westland, Oregon, said the family grew their own vegetables and kept animals. Though the neighbor said he never was concerned about the children's well-being, he told reporters, something just doesn't seem right. They were very isolated in the home. And this wasn't even the first time that CPS was brought in to check on the kids. Back in 2010, when the family lived in Minnesota, 6-year-old Abigail Hart told a teacher she had owies.
Yep, always, because them beat her to scorn. She had what? She had always. This was the report before. Nothing came out of it. White folks just got up and met the children. Some of them are dead. That little boy is missing. Where are they? Oh, where's the children? These are the things that I'm talking about. So if you're not highlighting this story, next. Let's continue. So remember we were talking about Jonah's case, so we just can end up highlighting this case on top of every other cases, right?
And mom hit me. Sarah Hart told a social worker she had leaned Abigail over the tub and spanked her for misbehaving. She pled guilty to misdemeanor domestic assault and served a year of probation without incident. So this family moved around a lot, and multiple teachers...
So did you hear? So the white lady spanked the black child, got charged, went on probation, and still end up keeping the black children. Where you ever hear a black mom spank her child and she went to school and say, oh, my mom beat me, and they say, okay, you can keep the child, beat her some more? That will never happen. That will never happen. So right here, when I'm sitting down here, well, actually standing here, letting you guys know that this Jonah was abandoned by his so-called governor father. All these kind of pictures, all nice and happy. Look at Jonah when he's about 5. Adopted from Ethiopia. Sent to a third world country into a boarding school. End up being abused in Jamaica, allegedly, by the school, allegedly abandoned in Jamaica. Nobody came to come and get that boy. That boy had to do some fundraising. That boy had to find his way in America by himself and now have some kind of stipulation, dad and mom governor don't come close because you guys are creatures. So these are the things that I'm talking about, folks. So if you never know the story, you heard the story over here first. Peace and love.